Hey guys, so much interesting video on Wild Rift. So we're back with a Senna supplementary guide, and this one is going to be on farming Senna. So farming Senna, we'll talk more about farming Senna itself when we get to the gameplay itself. But first up, I want to cover the build, runes, and spells real quickly. Now, I say real quickly because we've already covered this in our Senna updated complete guide that we did release last week. So if you guys want to have a more in-depth view of it, you can take a look at it over there. Basically, this is the same build, just that you do not actually go for the support item. So the only two items that are fixed in your build is your Mana Mune and your Runan's Hurricane. So I'm going to explain how it works. So first up, when you start off with a longsword, and then you build your Sapphire Crystal tier blah 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 into the Mana Mune eventually. Mana Mune, of course, gives you ability Haste AD, as well as, of course, the mana itself. Now, Senna is an extremely mana hungry champion, even with the completed Mirror Mana, so you definitely do need this for the mana, but also, of course, for the damage on your auto attacks and on your Q as well, especially. So you do want to go for the Mana Mune. Now, for the second item, it's your stat item. So you go for the Black Cleaver, which gives you 350 max health, 40 AD, 20 ability haste, as well as the extra movement speed, as well as, of course, that armor shred, which you probably will not be able to apply too much, but it still helps. Now, the other two options you have for this slot is going to be Edge of Night, if there's a lot of enemy skill shots that you need to immune, or a lot of enemy spells that you need to immune. Examples include the hook champions like Nautilus, Thresh, etc., or even some of the high poke champions like Lethality, Varus, or like a late game Ziggs or Orianna that you want to immune. And your last option is, of course, Serpent's Fang against teams that have heavy shielding. Black Cleaver is generally your best option, but you only opt for the two lethality items in matches that you really need it. So for your boots, you generally go for the Ionian Boots of Lucidity. If you don't build Black Cleaver, you want to go for the Boots of Furor. And for your enchantment, you either go for the Stasis if they're assassins or you want to play safe. Otherwise, you go for the Protect enchant, which is going to be the best all around for both you and your team. And yeah, so after that, you go for the Runan's Hurricane. This gives you a little bit of crit attack speed, but you mainly get it for the Wind's Fury passive, which of course allows you to attack 3 people at a time, and this boosts your damage tremendously because Senna's passive and Mana Mune procs on the other 2 people you're attacking as well. So assuming you auto attack twice, you can actually proc your passive onto all 3 of those people for a huge burst of damage onto multiple targets. And yeah, so now your last 2 items are pretty flexible. Your options include Rapid Fire Cannon, which of course mainly gives you that bonus attack range combined with her passive, gives her insane range where you can attack someone from a screen away, something like that. And another option is, of course, the Navori Quick Blades. Now, Navori Quick Blades gives you AD, crit, and ability haste, and it also gives you the Death Strikes passive. This allows you to get up your W a lot more often, and your Q as well. Your Q gets your cooldown reduced by 1 second every time you auto attack, but combined with Navori, you can get your Q up really quickly. And another option you have is going to be Maul Reminder, which of course gives you armor penetration, AD, as well as grievous wounds. And you also can go for a last item, Divine Sunder, if you really want to, but I just don't really think it's very good at the moment. I guess if there's a lot of enemy tanks, you might want to go for it, but otherwise it's not a good idea. Now, in this gameplay itself, I've actually gone for this build. And the reason why I went for this particular build is by the time I was building into Navori Quick Blades, I already had 70+% crit chance from my passive combined with Runan's Hurricane, and by the time I got to Navori Quick Blades completed, I had 95% crit rate at that point. So this pretty much led me to having basically 100% crit by this point. So Navori procs on all of my auto attacks, and then obviously I don't need another crit item, so I'm not gonna waste my item slot on Rapid Fire Cannon. I instead go for the Maul Reminder, mainly for the grievous wounds. But of course, as I mentioned, you do have a lot of different options when it comes to your build itself, especially when it comes to the last 2 items as well as your second item. So for the runes, I always go for Kraken Slayer because Kraken Slayer makes Senna in lane very, very strong. Her damage is even comparable to a Draven, like you guys will see in the gameplay later. And Grasp is your other option, but I don't like it too much. For the second rune, you take Brutal pretty much 90% of the time. The only time you don't take Brutal is if you're into an extremely tanky enemy team, then you want to go for Giant Slayer. And I take Bone Plating 100% of the time, but of course, you could also go for Nullifying Orb and Hunter Titan if you prefer, but I think Bone Plating is simply too good at this point in time. And finally, I like to go for the Hunter Genius for that extra ability haste to get my abilities up more often. Now, there is an argument for going Nimbus Cloak here, especially because later on in the game, you're going to have multiple ability haste items and possibly Navori Quick Blades as well, but this is kind of up to you. This is a little bit more early game focus, assuming you can get a number of takedowns. And yeah, so for ADC Senna, obviously you want to go for Exhaust and Flash. No need for heal because you are the ADC in this scenario. But with all that out the way, let's jump straight on into the gameplay. Okay, so now let's talk about the gameplay itself. So first things first is obviously, why are we playing Senna ADC? Well, the real answer to that is because Senna, like 2 patches ago, got buffed on her Q to give a 15% slow. And because of her getting that 15% slow, what you're getting is a lot of extra utility, and what you're getting with Senna ADC is a couple of things. So traditionally, when you play Senna as a support, you get a lot of souls, but you don't get a lot of gold after you complete your support item. When you have your support item, you're still getting quite a bit of gold, but after you complete your support item, not really anymore. By the way, guys, look at this. Me and Draven traded even. This is why I say that Senna does pretty well against Draven in lane. But anyways, back to my point is Senna doesn't get a lot of gold as a support, but as an ADC, she gets a lot of gold. And Senna, at the end of the day, is a marksman champion who benefits a lot from gold because she can get items. So when you're farming like what you see here, you get items a lot quicker, and you get to your item breakpoints a lot faster, and because of that, you can actually carry in terms of damage. Now, I will agree that the way Senna is designed is she's not meant to be an ADC. Obviously, she's designed as a support, but I cannot deny that it does work. Here in the lane, we blow the Draven's Flash and the Seraphine's heal, which is going to be crucial later on. But the second reason why Senna is really good as ADC, especially at the moment, is because enemies don't know how to play against it. And the reason enemies don't know how to play against it is simply because Senna ADC is not really a common thing. They either think that you're trolling, and as a result you already have like a advantage against them, because Senna ADC is not troll. She can be really, really strong, especially her auto Q auto combo can half health an ADC relatively easily. And most people will underestimate that damage because they're not used to playing against a Senna ADC. So they will like underestimate your damage, and they simply won't know how to play against you because they're not used to playing against a Senna ADC. Most of the time when you play against Senna in solo queue, it's Senna with another ADC, so you're playing against a double ADC lane. And for example, a Draven versus a double ADC lane could a lot of times just run for it and just attack them and kind of destroy their health. But as you guys can see in this gameplay, here I'm playing with a Leona who is my support. So in doing so, this is like a very traditional kind of lane where you're playing with an ADC and a tank engaged support, except that your ADC in this case is Senna. So before we get back to talking about Senna, let's talk about this. We see a fight happening here. Obviously Draven has priority, but here we are on the rotation trying to help out our team. We exhaust the Draven to prevent him from doing damage, and then Leona is able to finish Draven off. I ult here for the shield as well as a little bit of damage, flashing for the kill on Lilia, and then getting a double on Seraphine. So really good start for me, 2, 0, and 1 off of that. We can go for the reset and pick ourselves up the mana immune. Obviously the earlier we get the mana immune, the better, because it's going to allow us to stack up faster. And of course we want to use spells now that we have the completed mana immune. So here we're using our E. So basically all I'm saying is the main advantage of playing Senna ADC is she really isn't troll. She can do a lot of damage, and people generally underestimate her or simply just don't know how to play against her, which in the long run, if a lot of people play Senna ADC, is not really going to be a factor anymore, but for now it is. Here Rengar just runs straight at the enemies and just goes straight on in. I heal him with my Q. Seraphine launches her ult to Narnia, and the Leona outlands on Draven, so I pick up another double kill. I'm 4-0-1 now. That's pretty amazing start to the game for me. And here we're just picking up, of course, all of the CS, being the ADC Senna that we are. And yeah, we're just gonna pick up all the farm and get a tower plate, and we're gonna have to back off after that because the enemies have respawned and they can indeed come back over here. We spot Lilia off on the Tribush ward, so we do know that she's in the area, but using the E we should be able to zoom away, and the minion wave will block Lilia's E if she does choose to launch it at us. So with that we can easily escape back to our tower and back to safety. So the main issue with Senna ADC is the exact same issue as Senna support, which is that although she has pretty long range, her range at level 1 is the same as Ashe, which is the second longest base range, second only to Caitlyn, so she does outrange like Draven, etc. Which is also why she's pretty good against Draven, because she can attack Draven when Draven cannot attack her. But the main weakness is that she's incredibly squishy and she really needs a tank. So you can never play Senna ADC, or actually Senna support for that matter, if you don't have a tank. So in this game, we have a Leona, so we have some frontline and we have some tank, both in the same champion, of course. So we really need a tank in order to play Senna. If you play Senna without a tank, you are kind of trolling because there is no one to protect you, and you can become incredibly useless. Now here the enemy team decides to do drag without their jungler. The jungler is on the way, but unfortunately I managed to die to Yasuo and give him the huge shutdown, and that is a problem that is gonna lead to a lot of problems later on. But anyways, here Rengar manages to swoop in to steal the dragon from the enemy team, and overall we trade 1 for 3. Only I died for 3 kills on the enemy team, and we also get the dragon, so the play is pretty positive as of now. However, what happens here is that my team pretty much overstays trying to get off a dive or trying to get some tower damage, etc. And what happens is the enemy team ends up respawning. I try to ult for the shield to help out my team, but Rengar ends up dying right there, and then Ahri also ends up dying. And here I come in with the root, but obviously we cannot be fighting 1v5, so here me and Leona are just going to simply run away. And overall, at the end of the day, throughout that extended play, we pretty much ended up trading 3 for 3, but we did get the dragon overall. So at the end of the day, if you count the whole long extended play, that was not a good play. But of course, you know, as a Senna, you cannot control your team. Like, I'm already dead. I cannot control my team to back them off or anything like that. So they all just end up dying, with the exception of the Leona. Here Draven is busy getting some plates, so we're gonna have to immediately put a stop to him. And yeah, one weakness of Senna ADC is her horrible wave clear. Her auto attack speed is really slow, so she does clear wave pretty slowly, which is why Draven was able to actually get priority just now over me, because Draven does incredibly high damage and attacks way quicker than Senna. Anyways, my team tried to contest the Herald and all 3 of them die, so it's kind of going a little bit downhill from here. Enemy team picks up the Herald. We're pretty much even in terms of kills and gold at this point in time. In terms of objectives, we got a dragon, whereas they got a Herald, so it's a pretty competitive match 7 minutes into the game. Now, I'm personally doing fine. I'm 4-1-3. I went for the Serpent's Fang this game because there's a lot of shielding. We have Malphite passive, we have Yasuo passive, we have Seraphine W, so we also have Draven Bloodthirster, but Draven didn't actually build Bloodthirster, at least not yet. But generally, Draven builds Bloodthirster as his first item. But regardless, there's a lot of shielding on the enemy team, so we're going for that Serpent's Fang. So here, I almost managed to kill the Senna, and Draven exhausts me. So here I'm actually focusing the Draven. Meanwhile, the Yasuo and the Lilia are kind of, you know, attacking my team in the meanwhile. But Rengar is able to finish off both of the kills, and we end up winning out on the fight overall. Again, trading 1 for 4 this time. So on the side of the enemy team, the Malphite and the Yasuo are doing pretty well. Malphite is actually building tank, so he's not going to be a major issue. Of course, his engage is always going to be an issue whenever there's a Malphite on the enemy team. but in terms of damage, he's not a major issue. Whereas Yasuo 4, 3, and 4 is getting pretty fat at 2 completed items already. So Yasuo is kind of starting to become an issue for me and my team. Thankfully, Draven and Seraphine are kept at bay. Lilia is kind of even. But yeah, Draven hasn't really been able to get too many cash-ins. Matter of fact, I'm higher gold than Draven, which definitely tells you what you need to know, which is obviously that Draven is not very fat. Now, unfortunately here, Yasuo picks up a double kill, kites around the kill using the minions, and picks up a triple kill. Thankfully though, I am Senna, and in case you guys did not know, Senna can actually shoot through Yasuo's wind wall with both her auto attacks as well as her Q, because they are not projectiles. Like her Q is not really a bullet. Her Q is kind of like you're sucking the soul of your opponent. So it's not a bullet. You can actually auto attack through wind wall, and her Q is like a laser, sort of like Lux ultimate, so that also goes through the wind wall. So one of the benefits of playing Senna against Yasuo is that Senna kind of hard counters Yasuo's wind wall. The only thing that Yasuo can actually block from Senna is her W. Her ult is also a laser, so Yasuo also cannot block Senna's ulti. So here Lilia gets caught in the jungle, and I thought she got caught in the jungle, I should say. But when we try to finish her off, what ends up happening is her whole team is there, and here I pretty much get bursted down by Yasuo. I have the stasis already, because in this match there's so many backline like threats. There's the Yasuo Malphite combo, there's like Seraphine ulti, and you know as well as Lilia possibly just prancing over to the backline. So I decided to go for the stasis, although the stasis in this situation did not really help me considering I was already at 1 HP. So that's just a little bit unfortunate. Here Yasuo goes in on the Rengar, and despite being right at a bush, Rengar still ends up dying, and Yasuo picks up yet another kill. Now Yasuo is 10, 5, and 4, incredibly fat, does end up dying to Ahri eventually, but he's about to get his IE power spike and 100% crit. So this is sort of a not too good of a scenario. Here I out to shield the Ahri, but doesn't quite work. I land the root onto Seraphine and end up killing her, and then we also pick up the kill on Malphite, which is actually a shutdown, so ends up going pretty well. Here with 3 members of the enemy team are dead, Yasuo is just respawning. So here we're thinking of getting the pick on Lilia before doing dragon, but Lilia manages to scamper off. So here I control ward the dragon and kind of started off, but Rengar and Leona are sort of trying to set a trap for the enemy. So here I see that no one else is really doing dragon. I peel off the dragon and rotate over to Yasuo. Here again I can actually Q through the wind wall to get the Yasuo, and here we finish off the Lilia as well. So with the most fed member and the jungler down on the enemy team, this is basically a free dragon. And yeah, so of course in this particular match we did get really fed in the early game. We're at 10k, 10.5k gold now, and the only person close is basically Yasuo at 10k, which is why this is still a really competitive match. Here the enemy team contests the dragon for really no good reason. Like there's no way you're getting the dragon when we have a jungler and you do not. And 2 people end up blasting themselves into the pit. They both end up dying, and Draven ends up dying as well, which is a complete disaster for the enemy team. They should not even have been contesting this dragon at all, but they chose to do so anyway, and they end up paying the price for it with their lives. And that is a major swing for my team, because we got multiple kills, pretty much a delayed ace on the whole enemy team. We also got the dragon, and yeah, so now I'm 9, 2, and 11 with my first 3 items completed. At this point I am really strong, because when you have the mirror mana, your second stat item, as well as when you complete Runan's Hurricane, you become super duper strong. And as I mentioned, at this point in time, combine my Runan's Hurricane with my souls, I'm at about 75% crit. So I'm going for Navari Quick Blades, since that will put me to nearly 100% crit, and then that will of course allow me to refresh my Q and W really easily off of my auto attacks. So here, now that we've got a bunch of picks again, only Draven is left alive. We're going to take this opportunity to start pushing the bot lane as well as the mid lane. So here we're finishing off the bot lane tower. Now in hindsight on this game, we could have continued pushing to the inhibitor. Would have been really greedy considering enemies are all about to respawn, but I think it probably would have been possible to actually pick up the inhibitor. Instead of going for the inhibitor play, which only kill commits to, we all end up actually going for the mid lane tier 1 instead. Now the whole enemy team has respawned, so it's time to take our leave, and it's time of course to recall. However, Rengar doesn't really get the memo, and he ends up going for the push on top tower instead. Me, Ahri, and Kayle all back off. but Rengar is kind of getting caught in no man's land. Rengar, as well as Seraphine and Yasuo all coming to cut him off. We see from the minimap that Malphite has ulted in on Rengar, and Rengar has died as a result. We can also see that for some reason Seraphine decided to ult the Rengar. From this replay, you can see that Rengar and Seraphine both ulted for that one Rengar, which is completely not worth, which means that now we have a very favorable fight here with a Seraphine and Malphite that don't have any ultimate. So here, we get the quick kill on the Seraphine, and now we're on the chase for the Malphite. Here, Yasuo actually comes on in. I exhaust him, and he manages to get the ult up on me. Here, I actually had my stasis up, but I was not expecting him to kill me and burst me instantly, which is why I didn't actually use it. But yeah, Yasuo is actually incredibly fed. He's at 12k gold, and yeah, he's becoming a very, very major issue, especially considering he can dash through my teammates and get on top of me. It's a little bit difficult for Leona to stop him unless she saves the point and click stun for the Yasuo, but either way, it's really, really difficult. But thankfully, we managed to get picks, I guess you could say, on the whole enemy team with the exception of Seraphine. And since we have a Rengar at 3 items can pretty much solo Baron, but in this case he has a kill to help him out. Not sure why he smited so early there, but kill, really, really squishy, tanking a lot of Baron damage. Thankfully, my team does manage to secure the Baron, and just as I respawn, so I also benefit from getting the Baron buff. I have Navori Quick Blades completed, and I'm at 95% crit at this point in time. I'm gonna go pick up the red buff for additional damage and slow. And as I mentioned from my last item, I'm going for Maul Reminder. The tank shredding will help me against the Malphite, and the anti-heal will help, of course, against the Draven as well as the Yasuo. So here my team with the Baron buff is kind of pushing down bot, which is of course a good thing to do with the Baron buff. Whole enemy team is grouped up on the bot side except Yasuo. Yasuo ends up going onto the kill, and Kill has to pop the ulti. Yasuo still in the end manages to get the kill onto the kill after the ulti ends. However, he ends up trading 1-for-1 with the kill, which is very, very optimal for us as Yasuo is the most fed member on their team, and we do have the Baron buff. Leona gets a huge 2-man ult and goes in. Seraphine 1-man ults the Leona. Here you can see Runa's Hurricane putting in a lot of work. Unfortunately, both Malphite and Seraphine live on 1 HP, or excuse me, Malphite does end up dying eventually, but Seraphine and Draven now live on 1 HP. Now, unfortunately, me and Rengar both instantly die because we're both really, really squishy, and Leona backed off to get some fruit. Which basically means my team ends up squandering the Baron buff with only Ahri left alive and of course unable to push. And also as a result, my team also will end up losing the Ocean Dragon, which is respawning in 10 seconds, whereas me and Rengar are respawning in 20 seconds, more than enough time for the enemy team to rotate over and pick up the dragon. If somehow they don't get the dragon, you know, that would be absolutely amazing because it's pretty much free at this point. And nothing much Kale and Ahri can do. Matter of fact, they should not even go near the dragon to contest it because we cannot really do anything about it anyway. Now, Rengar is indeed pinging for her to retreat, which is of course the correct move in this case, and as expected, the enemy team does indeed pick up the dragon. No real surprise there. Here Rengar ults and tries to go onto the Yasuo. Doesn't really work. Yasuo ends up not really actually taking any damage at all. And here we're getting into like the really late stages of the match. I'm pretty much almost full build at 14k gold at this point. Still the most gold in the game, followed very closely behind by Ahri and Yasuo. Nice 3-man ulti from Seraphine, but I end up managing to get a like 3 to 4-man root, I believe. However, the Ahri does die and Leona is left on 1 HP, so I don't have any front line to work with. And when that happens, you pretty much just have to back off. You cannot like solo tank the enemy's damage because Senna is just way too squishy for that. Here I'm attacking Yasuo through the wind wall again, trying to get some meaningful damage down. Unfortunately, Kale gets hit by Yasuo's Tornado and gets ulted, and I'm in a position where I do not want to help her out because I don't know if Malphite has ulti. Back on the replay, we can see he doesn't, but it's almost up. And of course, in the actual match itself, what I would be thinking here is that I don't know if he has ulti or not because I did not see him use it anytime recently, so I don't want to take the risk of walking up, getting ulted by Malphite, and you know, just getting one shot afterwards. So here, we just back off, and here we're just clearing wave. We can see Rengar coming in off the flank, so we're here ready to follow up, giving the shield to Rengar as well as doing some damage. Seraphine, another 3-man ult. Malphite's gonna be the sacrificial lamb. Yasuo goes in, rolls for the low HP target. I hit the exhaust and Seraphine not Seraphine, Leona hits all the CC, allowing me to pick up the kill onto Yasuo and then the double onto the Lilia. And then we go on to Seraphine and pick up the kill on Seraphine. Draven is the last man standing. Barely out of range on my W. Leona ends up going in and allows me to pick up the final kill onto the Draven. So here we don't have a wave in mid because the wave is all the way at our tier 2. However, we do have waves in top and bot. So we are gonna instead go down bot to clear up the wave and also secure the bot tower. So here if you notice, both of our Cannon minions are 1 HP and one actually ends up dying to the enemy minions, as you guys can see here. So here I get Leona to tank the tower so that the minion stays alive, and this is very important because the minion in the vicinity of the tower actually lowers the defenses of the tower, whereas if we let that minion die and then Leona tank the tower is going to be a lot more tanky. So that's something that a lot of people don't know, and it's really difficult to execute in low elo, because especially if you are the ADC, you have to get your support to do it because you can't be the one tanking the tower. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult, but in higher elo should be a little bit easier because people will generally know that they need to do that. So anyways, here the Elder Dragon is coming up in about 20 or so seconds, which obviously means that we want to, of course, get a fight over there. And my team is pretty far ahead of the enemy team, so we should be able to win this fight, get the Elder, and win the game. Here we spot Malphite on his lonesome, and Rengar comes in for the flank. Now he may be the tank, but in getting rid of him, we did get rid of a huge teamfight ult and a huge Yasuo enabler. So with that out the way, the only other knockup Yasuo has is his own, as well as Draven's E, which is not a very reliable form of knockup. So here we are going to go onto the Elder Dragon, and we're going to, of course, try to secure the Elder Dragon. Here you can see me and Rengar are 2-manning the Elder Dragon, while everybody else is just trapping for the enemy team. Me and Rengar have more than enough damage to take down the Elder Dragon. As you guys can see here, the enemies all fell into the trap. Kill instantly gets a double kill, followed by a triple kill onto the Draven, and the fact that the enemy team came to contest pretty much sealed their fate. And now only Yasuo is left alive, and Yasuo, although he's really fat, cannot 1v5 literally. So Yasuo ends up dying to the Elder Dragon off of Rengar, and here my team can finish the game. Malphite does respawn, but obviously that doesn't matter. But hopefully from this game you guys can see how strong Senna ADC actually is. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.